Welcome back to another episode of my vlog. So it's President's Day weekend, which means I have an extra day off. I'm gonna spend half of the weekend hiking a new trail that I've never visited before. In New York State, there's this thing called the Finger Lakes Trail, and it's like 950 miles across a lot of the state. One of those sections runs along the east side of Letchworth State Park, and that's what I'm going to be visiting this weekend. The trail's length in total along the east side is greater than 20 miles, which means you'd be hard pressed to finish that with a full pack of gear in a day. So I'm going to break this up over 2 days. I'm going to hike the majority of the distance on day 1, spend the night in a lean-to, and then hike out on day 2. And because it's a multi-day hike, and because we live in upstate New York in the middle of February, I'm gonna have a few things to pack to stay warm, to stay fed, and to stay hydrated. I have it all laid out in my bed. I'm gonna pack it up, hit the sack, and we're gonna wake up and get started. It is 8:30 in the morning, and we have just arrived at the Mount Morris Dam Visitor Center. From this spot, you can find a trailhead. You can start further back. Like I said, the trail is over 950 miles and it goes on and on and on. But we're gonna start here today. So I just have a few things to get together in my pack and then we're gonna get started. That was pretty cool reading through the entries. Just a couple of days ago, one of the hikers on this trail said she saw an eagle. She walked right past it and it just stayed super calm, and maybe we'll see one. It's really cool that they put that on this trail. That overlook that was right across from that trail log, it's called Hogsback Overlook. There's a nice parking lot on the west side of the park with a great view, but I almost think this view's a little bit better. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to, is to see the park from a different angle. It's always disheartening when you're on these beautiful trails and you see litter. I brought a garbage bag with me so that if I find small pieces of rubbish, I can kind of pick them up and pack them out with me. You may have noticed that on my feet I have some metal spikes. These are called micro spikes, and I'm so glad I brought them because the ground is super icy. We had a really warm day recently which kind of melted the snow and then a freeze really quick. So there's like this top layer of ice on this trail. And if I didn't have the micro spikes, I'd be falling on my butt a lot. Actually, in my last hike last weekend, I forgot to bring them. I took a pretty nasty spill, which I didn't include in that video, but I guess I'll show it in this one. It's getting close to 11 o'clock now, and the temperature is on the rise. We're in like a full-on heat wave right now, like 28 degrees. I've got a lot of layers on, so I gotta start taking some stuff off. Because the last thing you wanna do on a cold winter backpacking trip is to sweat. Once nighttime comes, if you're all wet and drenched, you're gonna be in some big trouble. So I'm gonna pull over here in a couple seconds and shed a layer. We have reached the first lean-to on the Letchworth segment of the Finger Lakes Trail. I believe this is nicknamed the Power Line lean-to. So if you're coming in from the Mount Morris entrance like I did, when you see the power lines, you know you're really close. I was debating whether or not to stay here tonight, but I figured why not get most of the mileage done the first day. I don't know how I feel about that decision right now. 30 pounds is a lot to carry. I'm feeling all right, but I can tell in the next 3 or 4 hours it's going to be a little bit challenging. So I figured now is a good time to talk about, like, why do I do this stuff? What's the point of getting out here and hiking all these miles? The mileage part of it isn't the point. I really truly believe that getting out into nature is good for the soul. In fact, there's even a term for it. It's called forest bathing, or Shinrin-yoku. It's a term coined by the Japanese. Shinrin, forest, yoku, bathing. And it basically just means getting outside into the wilderness and immersing yourself with the natural world, and it has some health benefits. There's been studies over the last 30 years showing that if people just go out and stand in a wooded forest, their blood pressure goes down. There's these things called NK cells, natural killer cells, that increase in number, and those help fight cancer. So it's not like a medicine per se, but you could use it as a preventative or supplementary part of your lifestyle. And you don't need to go out and hike 13.5 miles with a ton of weight on your back and then spend the night. In fact, the practice of Shinrin-yoku is actually just going out and standing or sitting in the forest, so you don't even really have to move that much. It's just the act of getting outside that's gonna benefit you. I truly, truly believe that. It is 4:45 and the sun goes down in exactly 1 hour. I am just over 2 miles away from the lean-to at this point, so I'm going to pick up the pace a bit and try to make it before twilight runs out. I'm definitely not going to make it before the sun goes down, but I think I'll be in good shape. What's going on, man? So by the numbers, the official trail length from the Mount Morris entrance to here is 13.5 miles. With all the backtracking I did for filming and walking around, my GPS is 15.73 miles over 9 hours and 12 minutes. So that was an interesting night. It's my first time in a lean-to. Sleeping on a sheet of plywood was a lot of fun. Yeah, the low got down into the upper teens, and by 6 a.m. we were both ready to get moving again. So we're not quite sure exactly how far we're gonna be hiking today. At least 4.5 miles, maybe more. Chip says maybe 10, but couple disclaimers that I forgot to mention yesterday. As far as the drone shots go that you saw, you actually need to request a permit to fly a drone within the park boundaries. And as for the lean-to, you can't just walk in and stay in one. You also have to request a permit from the park office to do that. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned those two things. It's always good to abide by the law, right, Chip?
Absolutely, that's all I do.
So we have reached the intersection of the Genesee Valley Greenway and the Finger Lakes Trail that runs along Letchworth State Park, which concludes the hike I had planned for today. You can keep taking the Greenway and it'll take you all the way down to the parade grounds, which will link you up to Trail 7, which gives you a great view of Middle and Upper Falls. But after 18.1 miles, I'm ready to call it a day. As always, if you enjoyed the video, subscribe, like, and we'll see you next time.